I had some well-wishers, and I want to thank them. Okay, here's a couple of them. I pulled a few of the comments people made. And a fellow says there, leave carbohydrates and beers alone. Beers. He wants me to leave. Here I've been drinking a beer. I mean, if I'm going to die here on camera, I might as well, have a beer, die with a beer in my hand. Anyways, he says concentrate on cooked and raw vegetables. A lot of people recommend that. No fruits at all. Some people do recommend fruits, others say no. Okay. Careful with physical exercise, slow and well. Yeah, I do my exercise. You can see there. Uh, always do your exercises. Uh, so yeah, everybody's involved with this issue about doing exercise, eating veggies, let go of the carbos, carbs, and the maybe even some people say let go of the meats. Uh, Everybody's an expert today on how to be healthy. And in my case, I'm 69, going on 100, and the issue is whether you can do miracles after a certain age. When you're 69, your life is behind you, and you're talking about history. When you're 20, it's the other way around. You're looking out the future. Your life is ahead of you. And so there's different ways of looking at these things. In fact, that's I think has a bearing on how people visualize extinction, because the old folks like me, older folks, there's people with much older than me, and their life is really their history. They've got it all here in memory, whereas the person who's 20 or 30 years old, he looks forward and he says, I don't want to die. I don't want the world to end now. I want to retire, reach old age, and then die naturally or not die at all if possible. And then if extinction happens after me, I mean, I don't care. Yeah, but see, so those are two different ways of looking at this whole thing. In fact, some people said, Bill, the reason you think about extinction is because you're about to die. And yeah, it could be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm looking at the mechanism. Okay, I'm saying what the mechanism of extinction is, not worried about when it's going to happen. Okay, well, another fellow said here, may I advise that you look into having one small aspirin per day until you have more data to set on and pursue either coronary artery calcium or measurements so that you have actionable data to act on together with your doctor. What I can tell you is, my mother always said that she didn't like doctors, and she faked just about all our vaccines. I don't even know what vaccines I got because she faked a lot of them. She did not believe in vaccines. She worked at the Swedish American Hospital as a nurse for a couple of years. Then she worked as a dentist assistant, and she thought a lot of the procedures that she saw, right, were unnecessary, that they were for profit. And so she developed a militant attitude against doctors in general. And the flip side of that is that she died because of cancer to the uterus. She died at a relatively young age of 62, and she could have lived maybe another 20 years if she would have caught it on time, knew what it was, and would have had an operation. An operation a lot of women have today, which is just get rid of the uterus and you can live a little longer. And so, you got to be careful about what decisions you take, and for me, it's a lesson. I hope you take it as a lesson. But regarding aspirin, she believed in aspirins. And one of the things I can tell you is that I believe in aspirin too. I'm a strong proponent of aspirin because, when you drink a little too much, usually that's the case when I take an aspirin, the next day, if you don't take an aspirin, you're going to feel very bad. And to help with a hangover, I usually learn from one of my buddies at work that it's good to take an aspirin at night, especially if you drink. Take an aspirin and then go to sleep. You'll wake up a lot better. And I followed his advice, and it's always worked for me. So I can recommend that. Aspirin I believe in aspirin. I don't know if I believe in the vax and the COVID, but I do believe in aspirin. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to tell me especially when I'm overdoing it with the drinks. Okay, and yeah, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die with a beer in my hand. Okay, you got to put those aspirin pills down with beer. Okay, fellow says, please look up coronary artery calcification score regarding your health issues. If you want to live a bit more, ditch the sugars, carbs, and get control of your insulin levels. You can look up insulin resistance, etc., etc. Yeah, one of the issues there is that today everybody is an expert in health. Okay, why? Because there's so much information out there, and a lot of it depends on what side you take. You know, there are studies that contradict each other, or there are opinions out there, and people say, "Oh, they proved this." Well, the other guy proved the opposite. You know, and so the question is, who are you going to follow? And it's whatever your original or what you already believe that takes you in one direction or the other. You know, so I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm not an expert in health. Um, I do have arthritis. I've had it since the age of around 38. That's when I first noticed that I had some kind of pain due to joints, and that was 31 years ago. And today, yeah, I feel a lot more pain in the muscles and the joints. I've had several operations, three of them on the shoulders, two on the knees, and so on. You know, microsurgeries. You know, to fix some little thing. Fortunately, we have that today. And I can't imagine poor old Neanderthal when he had arthritis. He had to die with it. But today you can do a little bit about that with some operations. And people say, well, you didn't need that operation. You could have done this, this, and that. Yeah, I mean, at one point in time, I couldn't, do the Hitler salute. I couldn't raise my arm because my arm just hurt so much. And they did the operation. A few months later, I was okay. So I don't know what to tell you. It's like, thank God we live in this day and age where they cure these problems, but I'm not an expert on the issue. Okay. Okay, another subject matter that came out this week. Ocean City topless ordinance head to the Supreme Court, the latest legal battle. The women want to take it off. Okay? They want to show their breasts just like men do. And I'm all for it. In fact, I think it should be mandatory. All women should be topless and at the beach, okay, and maybe even bottomless. I mean, it's up to them. I have no problem with it one way or another. Of course, my wife will blacken my eyes if she sees me watching or staring at one of them. But yeah, women try to imitate men in this day and age. A lot of them think it's a question of rights. And men kind of look at that in a different way. They say, yeah, sure, go ahead, show whatever you got. Of course, if the woman is 100 years old, you may not want to watch, But, so everybody has their own vision on this. Okay, we'll see what the Supreme Court decides. Anyway, another matter. Russia vetoes UN resolution on climate change as global security threat. And I think you should keep this in mind because for those of you who believe in conspiracies and so on, that the rich are governing the poor and so on, corralling them and manipulating them and so on. Here you have Mr. Putin, and he thinks that this is something that favors the United States. That's got nothing to do with the climate, and it's got nothing to do with security threat, global security threat. They think it's got to do with business, and that the United States is trying to take advantage of that somehow, and creating this hullabaloo about, climate change, we got to fix it because otherwise we're going to die. And my version on that is that climate change is so slow, we'll never get to it. Does climate change? Yeah, it's always changed. 600 million years that we've been around, life has been around. Climate has changed every day of our lives, in life's history. And does that kill us? Does that cause extinction? No, obviously not. Climate change, if anything, helps out the animals that are going to radiate in the next generation. That's when, certain animals squat some niches out there and they grow big and whatever, numerous. And others that are not favored by the climate, or the plants that are favored by the climates, they stay behind. And so you have the rich and powerful, and you have the weak and sometimes numerous. So, climate change does not cause extinction. And if you look at a lot of the theories of extinction that you'll read out there, they're all related to climate. Oh, it was the oxygen cycle, it was the carbon cycle, it was the nitrogen cycle. It's got nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Neither climate change nor asteroids ever caused the extinction of a single species on Earth. But that's what the paleontologists believe, because it happened so suddenly. They say it must have been this. Had it been a catastrophic accident. And no, Mother Nature, I believe, works in a different way. And she uses the same cookie cutter for all mass extinctions. Okay, Paul says that all these countries that I talked about the other day, the fact that Iran, Cuba, and so on, they wouldn't go along with this COVID thing because they're enemies of the United States. And if COVID was created by the United States, or even perhaps China, right? done by the rich to control the poor. Is that what it's all about? And Isabel says, you have just missed what country like USA, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, China, what they have in common. And they say it's the international financial system. Yeah, I don't think, unless you clarify exactly what you're referring to, I don't think we can say that this this COVID thing, has to do with some kind of manipulation. At least I'm not convinced of that. You can shoot all kinds of theories out there, but I personally don't buy them. I think that there is a bug out there. Some people are probably dying as a result of that. I have no idea. I know no person that I'm in contact with, that has died. I heard by word of mouth only that someone over there died, and who knows if they died because of COVID. My brother died this year. One of them died earlier this year. He died of diabetes, and maybe the government put the record that he died because of COVID, because there's a lot of interest in that, jacking up the numbers and so on. So there's a lot of that. That's human nature to do stuff like that. Did he die of COVID? Maybe, if you look up the record, man, maybe that's what it says. So I wouldn't put it past them that they say, well, he died of COVID. And, we know what he died of. So I don't know if they're manipulating the data or what out there. Personally, I don't care. I don't give a damn about all that stuff. I'm not into this COVID. If I got to get the vax, I get the vax only because I got to travel, and I don't care about getting it or not getting it. Either way, for me, it's the same. If I get the bug, if there is a bug and I get the bug and I die because of the bug, well, so be it. That's life, Okay, here we have another fella says, the rich rule the world. It's always been like that. And he said, well, technically, there were no rich people for most of human history. Hunter-gatherer tribes don't have no filthy rich people. The communist dream is to somehow revive the social relations seen in primitive tribes. And I think the fellow's right. I pretty much subscribe to this notion. Yeah, the people in the old days, they had no rich people. Hunter-gatherers and so on. When we talk about rich people, we're talking about, from commercial agriculture, maybe the Neolithic, up onwards. Anything beyond the Neolithic, the Paleolithic, you're not talking about rich people, obviously, because they had no property. Property had not been invented yet. The only property was the land that the clan hunted in. They said, this is my property, and anyone who steps over here, I'm going to kill him. He's going to be part of my food, my supper. Okay, another fellow along the same lines says, it is survival of the fittest. Always has been, always will be. The rich are just manipulating the process of natural selection. These are opinions, and the question is, you can't just give an opinion. Here we try to do science. Science is about explanations, not about opinions. And so it'd be nice if you put a little more, like saying, if you don't accept natural selection, you say that never happened, I don't believe in it, or whatever, fine. What do you propose in exchange? How did we get here? Why do we have all these animals? Why are some herbivores and others carnivores? And we're all mammals. The cow's a mammal, the lion's a mammal, and one is a herbivore and the other one's a carnivore. You got to explain. That's the purpose of science. But to give an opinion because, this is what you believe in, doesn't tell us much. So, it's people would like to spin their wheels. Give me a theory. Something I can sink my teeth into, something that I can understand. Not that I believe, but that I understand. Okay, along the same lines, fellow says, let me put it over here. Diversity reminds me of the democracy you refer to, an illusion, it appears to be. Yeah, democracies never happen. In fact, another fellow here says along this, or maybe I think it's the same fellow, I don't know, never be democracy. Yeah, Plato, he said that it's the rule of the mob. And he didn't like democracy. He said it was the worst form of government because you got people who have no stake in it, people who are ignorant, people who have no idea about anything, and they're going to rule. You're going to put them up there, which is more or less what Marx suggested. Marx said, hey, let's put the workers up there and let them govern because it's their personal interests. I got something here. What is this? Oh. It's their personal interest. But at the same time, the question is, if the guy is an ignorant person, and you have many of these people, and they're all up there because they govern, they're going to rule for you, and maybe they take all these irrational decisions. And so, yeah, I think Plato's notion there was more or less correct, and it never happened. we never had democracy. It's always been rule of the rich and powerful. They rule, whether for good or for bad. Will they rule any better than the masses of ignorant workers? Well, I don't know. I would say that not. I'm saying that the rich and powerful are a microcosm of the workers. They have different interests, but they are a microcosm of the population. They're a segment of the population. And they say, well, I'm going to rule because I have the money, I have the power, and I'm going to do whatever I want. And so the guy rules up there, and the guy on the bottom says, well, I don't like that. I want to do this other thing. Why? Because he's got a different interest. Or like Marx said, it's the clashes between classes. They have different interests. And so, it's the way the world has always run, at least since the commercial agricultural revolution, Neolithic. Maybe it happened even before then. The clans were ruled by some patriarch of some kind. I'm sure it wasn't fully equal. Okay. There's always been rulers and slaves, serfs, obeyers, whatever you want to call them, people at the bottom. I don't think that's ever changed. Well, it says here along the same lines again. Germany tried to have their own economy and financial system free from foreign investment and tentacles. I guess he's referring to the Hitler age, 1930s, 40s. This stance and attempt at monetary independence cost 14 million massacred Germans and a mental reprogramming program that never ended. Remember a lot of this has to do with racism. I'm sure that if Hitler was rise from the dead today, he would say, well, maybe it wasn't only the Jewish money that rules the world. How about the Chinese money today? They rule a lot of the world today. Maybe he would say, oh, these Orientals, and carry a war against the Chinese or whatever. A lot of it is racism because they want to get the population behind them. They know the population is separated by races and by religions and aside from differences, political differences. And so, the politicians, they take advantage of that. They steer the masses in one direction or the other based on, what people believe out there. And they say, oh, people hate blacks. Okay, we're going to talk against blacks. Oh, people hate Jews. We're going to talk about the Jews. And, they hate the Orientals. Let's talk about Orientals. The Orientals are in the news quite a bit lately. And the Arabs. I mean, 50 years ago, nobody talked about the Orientals or the Arabs. They weren't powerful. But now these countries, they started coming up. They're becoming our equals, so to speak. And so now they're in the news a little more. You have this Arab world, the Middle East there. You have the Chinese and their influence in the Eastern world. And so they're in the news now. And so if we could bring some of these people from the past, like Hitler, Mussolini, and so on, they might have a different opinion today about, oh, it's not the Jews, it's the Chinese. It's just politics. That's what it amounts to. Okay, another fellow says, this is an article that came out, and we were talking about the Great Reset from Klaus Schwab, and here we're talking about the Great Resignation, not the reset, or maybe the reset is the resignation. And what is this about? Well, it's saying that a lot of people are leaving their jobs, they're abandoning their jobs, or either they quit, or they've been furloughed, or whatever, and the guy doesn't want to come back. They say, look, the amount of money you're offering me, it's not enough of an incentive to get me back to work, okay? And so these were other articles there. 4.2 million Americans quit their jobs. The industries where workers quit, the most listened to article, quit the most, so they have a list of them. And then another one, the Liberty County workers who quit feel liberated. They lost their shackles, okay? But the community discovers a powerful downside. And so they went into, here you have the picture, okay? Now hiring, okay? And the fellow says, if you walk down any sidewalk, you will see now hiring. Okay? Yeah, it's a lot of people are resigning and not getting back to their jobs. And it just gives a few examples there, restaurant, hotel, barber shop, and nightclub. And you have all these comments and statements from people. They interviewed them at these different places in this little town. And maybe you could say it's again, a microcosm of what's happening, at least in the United States, and perhaps in other countries, especially in the West. And that is that people are abandoning their jobs. They're not going back. There's like 10 million jobs available. No one's taking them. And so the question is, first of all, is this real? That's one issue. The other one is, if it is real, Could it be that it's because they're not paying enough? Maybe it's a question of money. If you give me more money, I'll come back to work. If you don't, I won't. And some of the comments there, even from the managers, you'll see it says like Target offered $15 there in the hotel group. It says Target offered $15 an hour, and we were around $10 an hour, so we couldn't compete, and so on. So maybe this is just an issue of money. Should they offer more money to these people, and maybe there won't be so many jobs available, disposable, you know? And then there's the socialism part where the government says, oh, we have this pandemic, let's give people money during the transition as a stopgap. And so they give them money, and the guy says, hey, you know, I kind of like this. I got more time, I get money. I don't think I want to go back to work. I like this life, you know. And unless they give me a little more money, maybe I won't go back to work. And while they're out there, maybe they find a different activity where they can live off of. Maybe they don't make as much money. Maybe they don't have to pay the rent because they move in with mom and pops, you know. And you got all these situations out there where people are not going back to work. And there are jobs, apparently, but low-level jobs, low-paying jobs, and people are not willing to take them. So, you know, you figure out whether this is going to be a problem. And on top of that, you got inflation now that's happening, on top of that. So money is not worthless, but worth less, right? And so it's all coming together. The question is whether all of this is going to lead to a crisis where the global economy collapses. And again, I always say that the only economy that needs to fail is the United States economy, the American empire. If that economy fails, the whole world fails. You know, China can't survive, Europe can't survive, Russia can't survive. Okay, and if you add to that maybe a world war where they throw the nukes, you know, the fireworks, well, all bets are off. Then you better believe that extinction is staring us in the face. So this notion that we're going to live even 100 years, I think is far-fetched. Okay, my 5 cents worth on that. Okay, the 2 COVID shots not enough to stop Omicron. Okay, so is this being pushed down your throat, shoved down your throat? I had to get 2 shots to be able to travel because they required 2 shots. I think it was Johnson & Johnson has only 1 shot. Okay, great. But I mean, you had to get these 2 shots to be fully covered. And now they discovered, they developed in the lab, right, a new version, the Omicron. And now the 2 COVID shots are not sufficient. Now you got to get a 3rd one, maybe a 4th one. I mean, I don't know. Is this real or is this being manipulated? You know, again, those people who talk about conspiracy in this context may have a point. I'm not saying that they're right or that they're wrong. Again, I don't have enough information to decide that. But yeah, it does kind of make you wonder, you know, just they're inventing all these variants, all these strands of COVID. And now you need a new shot for this one, another one for that one, another one for that one. Sounds like a used car salesman trying to sell you something, okay? My take on that, I don't know. Again, I can only give you my opinion and not any rational explanation for that. Well, it says, you think they can't get away with lying about something like COVID? HIV has never been proven to cause AIDS. It was a big lie which the world believed, and they got away with it. Don't tell me your opinion, tell me your theory. Okay, so COVID did not exist. It never happened. What was it? Why were all these people in San Francisco, especially, you know, why were they getting sick? You know, their immune system failed. Too much beer. You know, you got to give me a theory. Don't tell me your opinion. I appreciate your opinion, but, you know, we want to see the meat. You know, the meat is the explanation. Try to stick to that. Fellow also says, you know, narrative of super dangerous virus. Yes, this is a lie. That's an opinion. Don't tell me it's your opinion. Give me an explanation. That's what is strong here. Okay, we're doing science, folks. Okay, talking about brain size the other day. Here we have, indeed, a smartphone is more powerful than a room-sized computer from 40 years ago. Size isn't everything in neurology. Yeah, they're talking about brain size. Is brain size everything? Well, now you have a chip, you know, that's small. Can't even see it. And certainly when you look at it under the microscope, I'll tell you because I've seen millions of these, right? You look at it under the microscope, 1000x, power of 1,000 times your eyesight, and you see all the little transistors in there. Fascinating, absolutely work of art, almost as much as technology. And that little thing has more powerful than the ENIAC of the 1940s. Okay, so the first computer, was all these tubes, a little cumbersome, and they have parts of that in, I think it's in the Smithsonian, it's in one of the museums. I think it's the Smithsonian Museum. And that was the first computer. And it could calculate, like a little calculator, more or less. That's the power it had. And today you have these tiny uh, uh, integrated circuits, chips, and they can do billions of times the calculations that that thing used to do. So size is not necessarily, what gives you brain power, but you got to consider something. Mammals that have the bigger brains versus their body, because a whale has a bigger brain than a human. Does that mean that the whale has more intelligence than a human? No, obviously we had a little different evolution. For those of you who believe in evolution, we had a different process for coming up with how we ended up. And so the whale ended up big in size, but its brain, even though it's got a brain uh, which is commensurate with its size, which is bigger than ours, doesn't have the ability that ours has. Okay, and you can go with the dolphin and parrots and other animals which allegedly or supposedly have certain levels of intelligence above that of an ant or a starfish, right? And size is not what determines how well you calibrate things in there, calculate and so on. And I gave the example of the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals are said to have had at least as big a brain as ours. Apparently, they had a little bigger brains than our brain case, bigger than ours. Maybe they even have bigger brains than ours on the average. Would that make them more intelligent? Would they be? I mean, they obviously did not develop as much as we did in our technology and our understanding of the universe and so on. So, was that a sign of intelligence, the fact that they had a big brain case? And yeah, in general, if you look at the transition over time from assuming, right, that was it the old monkeys, the from where we came from, they had smaller brains, and over time they got bigger and bigger, like Lucy, for example, they got bigger and bigger over time, and you say, oh yeah, the brain expanded, and that's why we became more intelligent. That could have been the history of humans, okay? But it doesn't mean that the lion, who probably had also some kind of growth from a tiny animal to the lion that it is today, also had his brain grew, but that doesn't mean that the lion, because of that, can do calculus. Okay, so again, think about all that. Brain size does not necessarily translate into more intelligence, whatever intelligence is. Yeah? Okay, and then a fellow says, evolution size of human brain is an opposite. The biggest evidence that the so-called theory of evolution is fallacy. Again, don't tell me that your opinion. Give me an explanation. If evolution never happened, right? Fine. We'll accept that as an assumption. It never happened. That theory is wrong. Okay, what do you propose in exchange? How did we get here? Why are all the differences between the animals? Why are some herbivores, others carnivores? And I can go on and on and on, giving you all kinds of descriptions that you would have to explain. Okay, if it's not evolution, what is it? How did we get here? Was it God and magic wand? You got to give us an explanation. Okay, it's not enough to say I don't believe in it. That's not a good explanation. Okay, just an opinion. And it says no direct correlation between brain size and intelligence. That's true. Okay, I'm saying that it's not necessarily that way. I think there is some correlation between brain size and intelligence, at least within humans, because again, if you take Lucy and Homo erectus and all our ancestors out there, we have the biggest brain, and that was part of our evolution. For those of you who believe in evolution, we started out a long time ago very small. We ended up with bigger brains. Was it the brain size that made us more intelligent? Well, again, we developed things like hand-eye coordination and so on, and that made us eventually develop the brain. For those of you who believe in evolution. But if you don't accept that, well, tell me what explanation you provide. Did just God make us out of clay and say abracadabra, and we ended up with this big brain that we have today, proportional to our body? You gotta give us an explanation. Okay, so yeah, even though I would say that that intelligence is not necessarily related to brain at the same time, there is a correlation there, and you would think that at least from an evolutionary perspective, yeah, the brain has evolved together with the body, because you could say the same thing about the body. Does body give you more strength? The fact that you're bigger? And the answer is yes. If you're a little ant, you don't have the strength, the power, the weight to push you can't push your weight around because you got no weight. On the other hand, you have, an elephant, and, he's mighty. And so did size make a difference? Well, yeah, I mean, I think it did. The whale is a big animal, and it's got this power because of its size. And so if you say, well, strength is unrelated to size, well, why do we have boxing categories or, weightlifting categories? Because apparently weight has something to do with size, and strength has something to do with size. And in the same way, you can say, that thinking, the ability to think, the reasoning power has something to do with the brain size. Would a guy that's got a peanut brain, have the same level of intelligence as a guy who's got a bigger brain? I don't know. I can only guess. Certainly the connections in there, like when you have autistic people or people with brain problems of some kind, if you look at their connections in there, the quality, it's different than that of a normal human. But at the same time, maybe they have the same size brain, or even this guy might even have a bigger brain for all we know, or a bigger brain case. So size is not necessarily a determinant, but I think it's got something to do with it to some degree, in the same way that having strength has something to do with size and with bigness. Okay, and another fellow puts his 5 cents worth there. What about the brain with most wrinkles? A wrinkled brain, old brain, I guess, right? Is that a closer definer of intelligence that we can tell physically with outsider observation? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can come up with all scenarios. The issue you got to answer is you got to explain. Okay, that's the point. So explain why we have a bigger brain than proportional to our body than other animals, and we are more intelligent. And for that, first you got to start by defining intelligence, and that's already a monster. That already will occupy your time researching. Believe me, I did it. Not easy to figure out what intelligence is or define it, right? Well, it says, I agree with Guy McPherson, okay? Latest data indicates nearly 6 degrees C by 2100. Fossil fuels are subsidized to almost, 60 second per, 6, whatever, per year. Peak oil study found that the expected peak oil predicted by math 60 years ago of around 2000 with almost 2006, okay, was about 2006, okay. Civilization failed for lack of maintaining complexity. We have passed peak container traffic and complexity on the planet. Public attention is guided to unrealistic expectations about where we are in this story. And what can I tell you? I've had a talk with Guy McPherson, and we do not see eye to eye with good old Guy. He believes that extinction will happen because of climate change, peak oil, and all that stuff that everybody throws around. And the first one that you got to think about is that the dinosaurs never used peak oil of any kind. Maybe to rub their backs. I don't know. Maybe some kind of what is it, cycad oil or something. There was no peak oil in the days of the dinosaurs, and they disappeared. No peak oil in the days of the Triassic archosaurs and so on. So peak oil is not a common denominator that Mother Nature uses to get rid of species. Maybe there's something else going on. How about food? That's what I keep saying. It's got to do something with food, not with peak oil or with climate change. What does climate change have to do with extinction? But that's what Guy believes. He believes that. He says it's, he's got this chicken little attitude saying, oh, the world's crashing, the sky is falling. And the issue there is that, yeah, the sky is falling, but, well, there's two issues. One issue, he believes there is a solution. If we just could get our act together and do something about it, the politicians. And that's what everybody out there who talks about climate change, peak oil, and all these other asteroids and whatever, that's what they all believe, that we can do something about extinction. I think I'm the only person on planet Earth says we can't do anything at all about extinction. Extinction is a done deal. We have no way of fighting or doing anything about extinction. You heard it here, okay? So when people say, well, what's the solution, Bill? There is no solution. And that's where we disagree with Guy. That's one of the issues. The other one is that, he believes it's got to do with climate change and maybe peak oil and some of the things that you hear about in the news today. He thinks that's going to cause some kind of catastrophe. And I'm saying we won't even make it to the 21st century, to the 2100s, right? To the end of the century. There's no way. We're going to go way before then, in my opinion, because right now we are headed towards zero population growth sometime around mid-century if things continue as they are now. I think it's going to happen before then. But if we continue as we are now, we're going to hit zero population growth mid-century or thereabouts, and that means the economy by then it's not going to grow. Okay, because ultimately the economy, the world economy, grows because there's demand, and demand is population. No population, no growth, no demand, et cetera, et cetera. And so at that point, you hit a brick wall. You have this bottleneck. A lot of companies expect more sales next year. They won't get them. They fire people. Because they fire people, they have less purchases, less demand, and it's just a cycle. And I think that happened very fast. Just like if you look at the 19th century, we grew exponentially. In the same way, we go down exponentially. Okay, so yeah, that's the way I look at things. And I don't think there's anything that anyone can do anything about that. No politician, no economist can do anything about that. Okay, Father says, you have to kill the bank industry. Again, conspiracy, right? The financial industry, that's it. Once done, a new era will raise. People actually believe that there's going to be a reset of some kind, and that once that reset is done, finally we're going to live in a paradise. Things are going to be okay. We could just get those bankers off our back. It says, Bill, proposal is to be extinct. Exactly. And however, I like to be with hope. Well, maybe you have a false sense of security. Maybe you have too much hope, and there is no hope. Maybe you're just fooling yourself. I mean, if you want to feel good, and you say, well, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, Bill. I'm going to go to this other channel that gives me hope. Yeah, fine. Go there and listen to beautiful music in your eyes. They say you're going to live forever, and we're going to get to this era where we have the technological singularity, and we're all going to have the robots fix our bodies so that maybe we live forever, and we won't have the bankers on top of it. We won't have to work. We'll have the robots doing everything for us. Yeah, you can hear all this beautiful stuff from Hollywood. And then you come here, and here we say, put your feet back on the ground, and we're going to tell you what's going to happen. What's going to happen is very soon there's going to be a collapse of the global economy. When, not if, but when that happens, food will be no more because no one will have an incentive to produce or distribute food to the cities. You got billions of people die in a matter of weeks. So yeah, it's not a question of hope. It's not that I'm pessimistic. It's a question that I try to be as realistic as possible. If you do not subscribe to that theory, you have a different theory, well, I'd like to hear it, of course. Again, don't tell me your opinion, tell me your theory. Okay, here we have another fellow says, what happens when we die? I'm assuming he's referring to extinction, to humans, not individually. When we die, that's it. But when humans die, when we become extinct, well, we're out of the way, and we were a big influence on this planet. You could say we modified it or destroyed it quite uniformly all around. We created our world. And when we die, there's a couple videos out there that show what happens when humans are no longer here. And you see the grass is growing over time, right? Grass is growing underneath the cement and the highways and so on, and it becomes, a little different than what you see today. So if you were to come in 1 million years, well, you would see a different planet. And one of the things that could very likely happen is a runaway greenhouse. Maybe the Earth turns into something like Venus, and Mother Nature finally got all her, all the bugs off her skin, and she becomes a normal planet like all the others out there, just a rock with a barren surface like the moon. I think that's what's going to happen in the long run. We're not important, and will anyone ever find us? Absolutely not. We'll be crushed at some point. Maybe the sun expands in 1 million years, or a few million years, more likely like in 1 billion years. And I think the number is 100 million. And within that time, no one's going to come and visit the solar system. And again, I'm saying that no one can travel, no life can travel interstellarly. It's forbidden by Father Universe, okay? No one can travel interstellarly. It's irrational to think of that, okay? But that's the baloney they sell you. I mean, I don't mind if it's science fiction. I love to watch it just like anyone else. The problem is when you believe it, and you believe that the Martians came here, the Klingons came here, or the ETs are about to arrive, or we can communicate with them. That's the fantasy. Now, we cannot travel interstellarly. It's forbidden by Father Universe, and I've talked about that in the past. But the point here is that, because of that, no one's going to come here. This notion of panspermia that people have, that a bug crawled on a rock, and the meteor, came all the way to side of the universe, our neighborhood, and populated the earth from that bug. Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. No such thing as panspermia in Father Universe's universe world. Okay, we had Miss Universe contest, and here you see the evolution. We had the 11th century Miss Universe, and it was run by the Arabs, I think. Okay, that's where it started. Then we went to about the 16th century. That changed. All the women, they showed their stuff, yeah, but they had to show that they had some, some skills, and so they had to bake bread and who knows what in those days. Maybe work the furnaces. 20th century, they came up with the bikinis, and you can see there the girls showing their bodies in bikinis. And now we have the 21st century version, and they're removing the bikini segment. No more bikinis. So my opinion is, that the golden age was the 20th century. Now, I'm not an expert, but that's what I vouch for, But there's been a change now. There's been a change in this year's, or not only this year's, but in the last few years. And now we have, for example, in this Miss Universe contest, we had the representative from Nevada. And it's this person, mispronoun. I meant to say mispronounced. They mispronounced his name because his name was Tommy, and they mispronounced it as Sally. And yeah, right now we have these X and Y's competing against the double X's, which is kind of weird. I'm saying, hey, I've been to Nevada, I've been to the casinos several times, and I've seen some beautiful women out there in Nevada, and especially, in that ambient, casinos and so on. And I'm saying, this guy is the most beautiful guy in all of Nevada? This is the best he could find? And yeah, we have all these crossovers, competitions. Here we have another one. This fellow, again, mispronounced. His name is Johnny, and I think they call him Betty or something like that. And he works for Victoria's Secret. This is what they want to show you. Okay, and so the question is whether this is something normal. Okay, is this the future? Okay, for the new generations. Here you see them again, all these folks, and you have also the crossover in. I showed this a couple weeks ago, where you have the fellas who are changing their sex and doing some kickboxing and all that good stuff. They're fighting against women. And so the question is this normal? Does this have a future? Is this the future of the world that we're seeing here? Or do we want to go back to civilizations to the 20th century? So food for thought, and again, one of the comments made for the Miss Universe contest was that, it's changed quite a bit, and a lot of people have lost interest. And I don't blame them. If they're going to remove the bikini segment, here they're removing the bikini segment from there. They want the girls dressed because they're competing for college careers or who knows what. And here you have the other ones in Ocean City, and they want to show their breasts topless. So the world's upside down today. So the question is, does that have a future, or are we moving in a certain direction that also is a sign that something is wrong, and that maybe, just maybe it's part of that extinction process where some things are going to be weird things.